Alright, what's up, guys? It is Ornlu, and, well, it's been a little while since my first DE tier list came out. There have been, I believe, 3 balance patches since then. So the old list from November isn't looking especially relevant anymore, so I thought I would do an updated 1v1 Arabia tier list based on all of the balance changes, all of the meta changes, and of course watching many hours of tournament games with pros and just random rated games with pros or show matches or anything like that. Just to, form my opinion and just sort of tell you guys how not only how the civs stack up now, but sort of how the meta has evolved over the past few months, as people are getting more and more acquainted with DE. So before I jump in, I just want to say that this list is subjective. It is my opinion, and if you have a different opinion, that is perfectly fine. You can put it in the comments. And this tier list isn't so rigid as like, oh, if you want a civ that's like 1 or 2 places higher than where I put it, or lower, or whatever. Like it's not that rigid. And I would, strongly emphasize that any of these civs you can win a game with. And of course, it is for 1v1 Arabia. So any civ can beat any other civ. Almost always the most important determining factor in a game is, well, skill, how good each player is, but also map generation and stuff like that is also really important. So this isn't like a super end-all decisive, like, oh, just roll the dice and see, do I win or lose this game? No. It's a lot more nuanced than that, and I guess I just want to make sure that that is established before jumping head first. But with all of that out of the way, let's get into it, shall we? So, starting at the top, we will have our S tier. These are going to be your very best 1v1 Arabia civs. So, now that there's a map pool for DE, you obviously aren't playing Arabia probably as much as you're used to, but it's still the baseline map where we kind of evaluate how good civs are or players. So, it's still, I think, the best way of measuring a tier list for civs. But of course, this isn't necessarily applicable to all of the maps. Obviously, water maps are going to be different, BF is going to be different, but Arabia, it still should be the same. As of recording this, Golden Pit is also going to have a very similar list to this. So yeah, let's just start at number 1. Surprise, surprise, it's the Aztecs. Who would have thunk? They've been number 1 on my tier list always, I think. And have been essentially the very best, or if not, one of the very best 1v1 Arabia civs since, Age of Conquerors came out. With the faster working military buildings, training units, and faster working farmers, access to Eagle Warriors, obviously, like Aztecs are just such a fast civ, really good at, bringing the fight to your opponent, taking map control early, and they just have really, really strong presence on the map throughout the whole game. Monks are going to be really good against cavalry in the mid game, and Eagle Warriors in early Imperial Age, Arbalest, Siege Ram, that whole thing. They're just a really, really strong, fast civ that is well suited to an open map like Arabia. And they really have very few bad matchups. And the fact that they are totally good against almost every civ in the game, well, there's a lot of civs out there, so that definitely speaks pretty highly of the civ. So definitely, if you really, really want to just like min-max your chances of success, probably go with Aztecs. So number 2, we have the Chinese. And this is a civ that is like probably the most varied civ on my tier list of just going all over the place from S tier to A tier, B tier, C tier. And really it's because of how weird the Chinese start is. And their position at number 2 right now, I think, is a reflection of the development of the metagame, which is, as far as like Arabia generations go, it's more consistent. The sheep now spawn closer to your town center, which is always great for Chinese. They even have 3 villagers under the town center to just go work on the sheep right away. And I'd say it's more focused on walling and getting up to castle age, drushing, all of that, a little bit more defensive play. And that sort of thing favors Chinese a ton, because their economy will just be so incredibly strong. Turns out the Chukonu is a pretty strong unit, but then you have Cavalier, Arbalests, fully upgraded halberdiers, siege rams, bombard towers. Now their monks have freaking block printing, so you can't even use onagers against them in the late game. And kind of like Aztecs, you're going to have a pretty solid chance against almost every civ out there. So yeah, if you're comfortable enough to deal with the weird start, just make sure that you put one more villager on sheep than you're used to, just to make sure that you can keep your TC working as quickly as possible. But if then the Chinese, they'll have answers to everything in a strong economy, strong military. The only thing that you would keep them out of the number one spot is that they just aren't as aggressive as Aztecs, and they just they're not as scary, from the very, very beginning of the game as Aztecs are. So that's why I can't really give them number one. At number 3, we have the Persians. So this is a civ that has seen a bit of a renaissance, shall we say, since DE came out. I mean, I knew that they would be good once DE came out. I didn't realize they'd be that good. I think in my last tier list I put them in B tier or something. No, they're really, really, really good. They're like the go-to pick for any sort of hybrid map. Just so strong and consistent, those extra starting resources and TC work rate and access to the trash crossbow, the 50 wood or 60 wood now crossbowman. It's just really, really solid. This is, of course, Arabia, so there's no water involved. However, again, you're looking at a civ that has answers to pretty much everything. You can open whatever you want. Your economy is almost always going to be better than your opponent's. You can either use your 5% faster working TC to click up, say, a villager later, or you can just get to, feudal age a little bit faster. You have very strong cavalry, access to gunpowder, and your trash is now super, super strong in the late game with the availability of trash bows. Of course, the unique attack was increased in price recently, but yeah, they're still the unit itself is just such a strong concept. They're crossbowmen that don't cost gold. Even if you're missing Bracer and Arbalest, it's still really, really good, especially against halberdiers, and they're even decent at raiding. So yeah, Persians, again, just a really strong, consistent civ. Now at number 4, we have the Mayans, the Meso twin of the Aztecs. So Mayans are interesting. I feel like they're picked in tournaments all the time, and they don't really have the best win rate ever. I'm never super wowed by Mayans anymore, and I think that might just be because for high-level players, and even moderately high-level players, they're a comfort civ. You've played a lot of Mayans if you've been playing this game for a long time, so you feel comfortable with how the transitions work and controlling plumed archers, eagle warrior raids, that whole thing. With that said, yes, they're good. Plumed archers are more expensive, which is, according to some individuals who will go unnamed, making the unit, quote, trash. No, plumed archers are still good. Mayans are still really good. Eagle warriors not producing as quickly as Aztecs is, I think, a little bit of a problem, especially in feudal age, but they're still available to you. Your economy is definitely stronger than Incas, who actually happen to be directly below them as far as pictures go. And yeah, you still have really good archers. Eagle warrior rating is good. Obsidian arrows is always a consideration if you're making a bunch of crossbows. Hello, Heater! It's always great to have you in my videos. Ugh. Now that I have silenced the Heater, just to, move on, Mayans are, they're fine, they're good. They're always going to be a little bit more polarized in terms of matchups compared to the 3 civs above them, so that's why I put them there. Another fan favorite classic is going to be Huns at number 5. Huns are Huns! They're good. They're with a very strong economy, lots of military choices as far as openings go, and mid-game. Tarkans are now a much more viable unit against archer civs, like Mayans, or, Britons, or whatever. And, you're not likely going to go wrong playing Huns. The one thing that is a little bit questionable with them is that we are living in a world these days where you're more likely to see players go for drushing into walling into later feudal age attacks, or just going right up to castle age. And that's not really what Huns like doing. Huns like getting up in your grill, kind of like Aztecs. So they, I would say, thrive more in the very, very open generations of Arabia with huge ponds in them. Or when players have really bad maps, Huns are fine with that because they can do lots of raiding and their defenses aren't very good. So, they want to go aggressive, and they're certainly still very good at doing that. You certainly have lots of options throughout the game, and hussar spam in the late game, access to halberdiers at all, heavy cav archers being cheap. It's still a good civ, so definitely not going to go wrong playing Huns. And rounding out our S tier of civs is one of my favorites, Malians. So kind of like Huns a little bit, they aren't as happy with the meta being a little bit slower. They loved going for the men at arm openings into towers and, like messy games where you have a lot of early tech switches with the cheaper buildings. That's not a problem for Malians. And if things slow down a little bit, then you're more likely to get into, say, an Imperial situation where you don't have Bracer, and you don't have Siege Ram, and you don't have Halberdier, and things start to feel a little bit more awkward. But still, in early to mid game, they are incredibly deadly. They have a ton of options in terms of what you can go for, how you should approach the situation based on the Civ matchup and your map layout and all that good stuff. Gebettos fill a pretty interesting niche in their army as far as like raiding goes, as well as like a melee damage support unit from range. So again, Malians, strong, solid civ. I would say that they definitely tail off a little bit towards the later stages of the game, but they're still usually good enough. And you're in a good enough spot as Malians to sort of carry you through those situations, and definitely a civ I'd recommend to people. Moving right along to our A tier, these are going to be the civs that are very good. You'll often see, top players, streamers, whoever picking these civs for rated games, maybe even in tournament settings where, you can't repeat civs, but for one reason or another, they're not quite as solid across the board as the S tier civs, but you're usually pretty fine picking them. So starting things off, we will have the Britons, whose position cannot be linked to any balance changes because they haven't received any balance changes in a long time. I think they have a cost hike to Warwolf, but that's all they've had in years. But now we have to discuss DE pathing, and melee units often struggling to do exactly what you want them to, whether that be stopping or just not targeting something that you explicitly tell them to target. It has gotten better over patches, but it's still a little bit iffy, and that sort of inherently makes you want to go for ranged units more, as they will perhaps be a bit more consistent. And when it comes to ranged units, Britons do that pretty well, I hear. So, you have the fast-working Shepherd. It's going to be really nice for you early on. And then, again, if you're in a situation also where you're a little bit more happy to go like Drush Fast Castle, like Britons are super happy to do that. You have the cheaper town centers and extra range for your crossbowmen, and can really use that to get a massive advantage in the mid game, take good fights against your opponent no matter what sort of composition they're going for. And even if it is like a big protracted feudal war, the faster working Briton ranges will help you outmass your opponent's archers or skirmishers or whatever going into Castle Age, so you can still sort of maintain that momentum even if the game is more action early on. Still, their biggest problem is like post-imp, they're really kind of slow. They don't really have the best army out there, and they can struggle against civs like, say, Mayans or any of the American civs and their Eagle Warriors. I mean, yes, they have fully upgraded champions, but that isn't always possible to switch into as easily. But the fact that have supplies does make it a worthwhile consideration in a lot of games. So they're still a really, really good strong pick. Next will be Khmer, a civ that I think was at the bottom or close to the bottom of my last tier list. They've definitely seen a resurgence, and that is the January patch, I believe, where Khmer farmers don't have to drop off at the town center or mill or whatever. So now you farm and the food instantly goes to your bank. So it's not even like, okay, I'll gather 10 food and then it will all be instantly deposited in your bank of resources. No, with every resource they collect, it instantly goes into your food stockpile. So you are just always at that like theoretical maximum amount of food income. And it means that in practice, Khmer farmers are kind of like Aztecs in that they're not as good as Slav farmers, but they're still really good. This bonus will sort of taper off in terms of like raw farming speed, once you research wheelbarrow and especially handcart, then handcart, all non-Slav civs have the same farming rate. But even so, there's always a bit more efficiency with Khmer because you don't have to drop off to mills as the game drags on. Now you don't have to worry about those weird farm placements that are like 10 tiles from the nearest TC or whatever. So that is definitely going to be quite nice for the Civ. Also, they now have Hussars, makes their trash a lot better. And yeah, turns out that Arbalest plus Battle Elephant is a really, really, really scary army composition. And you can just go for that in a lot of cases. You don't need the extra building, so you can usually save some food, and then, the 175 wood you'd spend on, say, a barracks early on, you can just be like, okay, I'll just make 3 farms, because that's around the same amount of wood. And then you can really help, leverage that early eco bonus. Problem, though, is that their tech tree is still kind of weird. It's really scorpion and elephant focused. Yeah, having Arbalests makes a huge difference, but it's still a little bit awkward. You don't have squires or plate mail for your halberdiers. You do have siege ram, you have cavaliers that are fully upgraded, but obviously no paladins or anything. And no thumb ring makes you cav archers not a great option. So it's still a little weird. Their monks aren't like amazing either, but they're definitely a very strong civ. Like, you just a raw economic powerhouse, especially when it comes to food income, and with elephants involved, there is certainly something to put that food to good use with. Now we have a fan favorite with Franks. They used to be like #1 most popular, highest win rate or whatever civ back in Wallow Kingdoms, right before DE came out. Now we live in the world of melee units not being quite as reliable. Like I said, they are better with each successive patch, but especially like as of me recording this video right now, there's still definitely plenty of problems out there with the pathing. So knights not always going to be doing what you want them to, but still, Franks are just rock solid, right? You have a very sort of intuitive game plan. Okay, you'll use your faster foragers and your extra scout HP to give you a very strong scout rush. And then in the mid game, you can go for knights, or you can go for pikemen and monks and siege. And then you can mix in throwing axemen to deal with your opponents. Pikemen or whatever. You have the cheap castles, which can really help bail you out defensively or offensively. So Franks, they have a very sort of intuitive game plan, and it's a very strong one, and you can use it in most situations pretty well. So they're going to be, a good solid pick, even now still. Next, we have Incas, a civilization that was made famous by villager rushing. So it's called a Noboru Rush because that's a player that did it a lot. But, you go up super early, like 18, 19 pop or something, build a blacksmith, get the +1 defense that affects your villagers, and use your 15% cheaper stone costing towers to tower them like crazy. Now, if you're thinking, hey, Ornlu, didn't you say the meta's more defensive and ranged unit focus? Yes, I did. But Arabia is still a map where you can do that pretty effectively, but lo and behold, there actually are other things you can do with the Civ. They have access to Eagle Warriors. Kameyuks are always going to be a really good option against cavalry-heavy Civs. Fully upgraded Arbalests, fully upgraded Siege Rams, fairly decent monks. Like, yes, they don't have the raw economic power that Mayans and Aztecs do, which is why they're sort of, forgotten other than in the context of going for crazy tower rushes with villagers. But they're still going to be a really strong pick that have a very consistent Dark Age with the llama and the extra house space and stuff. So yeah, still going to be a very good civ. And next we have the Slavs, who had a nerf in terms of their farming rate, which was just completely broken strong. And now it's only just a really, really good bonus and one of the best eco bonuses in the game. Like, they're a really good civ when it comes to just hanging back, booming, and then getting to an incredibly strong late game army of infantry, cavalier, siege, cheap siege, good monks, all that stuff. They're okay early on, but the problem is your eco bonus is your farm bonus. I mean, yeah, you have the extra house with capacity with your military buildings, but that's only a minor savings. So your economy bonus really starts to kick in like Castle Age, like late Feudal Age going into Castle Age and then onward. But Arabia is still an inherently aggressive map. Like, all of these changes to, it being more defensive are sort of relative, so it's still very much the norm to, have lots of feudal age fighting on Arabia, and Slavs are good in that situation, but not amazing. And then, of course, your archers are a little bit lacking. Yes, that is somewhat mitigated by your cheap siege, but it's not a perfect analog. But they're still going to be a really good pick and have a really terrifying late game and sort of push an Imperial Age. In a somewhat similar vein to Slavs, we have the Celts, who also have very good siege, very good infantry, and not so great archers. And Celts, unlike Slavs, don't have the greatest cavalry, which is probably why I put them a little bit lower. Probably. I made the list. Yes, that's why I put them in the spot below Slavs, is the lack of as strong cavalry as Slavs. But you do have the really nice bonus to your militia in Dark Age. They're the only civ that have a really true impactful bonus to their militia. Actually, no, Goths do now too, but Goths have other problems, as you can see. But you still have a very strong Drush. It is a Drush, like, centric meta. Not centric, but like, Drushing is very common these days. And Celts have one of the best Drushes in the game. You have the faster working Lumberjacks, which is just going to be really helpful at every single stage in the game. But you still have that weakness in late Castle Age, early Imperial Age, where you're transitioning from your not, archers. Well, you're transitioning from your archers or cavalry into not those things, ideally halberdiers or wood raiders plus siege. But that transition is like, it's usually like a big 180 flip, and you can either lose the momentum you have in the mid game or, be susceptible to some sort of timing by your opponent. So it's still going to be a little bit awkward, but like other than that, they're going to be strong in the early game, decent in early Castle Age, and then really strong in post-Imperial Age, so they're still definitely a very good pick. Rounding out our A tier, we will have the Mongols, my favorite civilization, who in the most recent patch, as of 2 days ago, had their hunt bonus reduced to 40%, and now have access to the Steppe Lancer, which gets the 30% HP buff that their Light Cav do. So Mongols, always a fan favorite civ. They're going to be really good on maps that have lots of hunt. Arabia is, standard hunt levels. Even with the 10%, collection rate nerf, like, it means you can't do like the crazy 16 or 17 pop up times. You'd have to like do something as late as like 19 pop consistently. But like, that's still really fast. You're almost always going to have a faster uptime than your opponent. And then you now have the Steppe Lancer to sort of give you a few more options in Castle Age. But as of me recording this video, Steppe Lancers are pretty bad, so it's not always the greatest option. And in Imperial Age, you're still lacking that last armor upgrade for them. Even if they have 124 HP, you're still, missing +4 defense, which is a big problem. But then you have Mangudai, and you have Siege, and you have your good Hussars too. So Mongol late game has always been their strength. Mid game, without any sort of eco bonus, has always been their weakness. So it's definitely a civ that it's a known quantity in terms of what they're good at and what they're not good at. But overall, they're still good, and they're fast, and they're definitely a civ that can outmaneuver your opponent and catch them off guard potentially early on. Now we have the big group, B tier. It's a testament to the balance of the game right now, where so many civs fit in B tier. And if you kind of look at the distribution I have, it's something like a normal like bell curve distribution, but more heavily weighted towards the top end, and that civs are good. And I think that's great. That's what you want. You want most civs to be at least fairly good on Arabia, and as few civs as possible to be like terrible on Arabia. So I think having a ton of civs here definitely speaks good things about the balance. But I think that also means that a lot of these civs are like really, really close. Like, I went back and forth on a lot of these, so even more than normal, I'd say you can mix and match these civs in their placements. But this is still the what I'm going with. And starting that with Japanese, top of B tier. Again, nothing really changing about them. They have the faster attacking infantry, giving them a very strong start along with their half-price drop-off points. So you can have a very strong men-at-arm rush. You can still go for a pretty good Drush Fast Castle and go into Crossbowmen. You have really good monks. Your knights are decent in Castle Age. But the big problem with Japanese, well, they have two problems. One is a mid-game eco bonus. Once you start getting a decent income, the cheaper drop-off points ceases to become a very relevant bonus. And then in late game, you don't really have a sort of intuitively strong game plan. Like, you sort of have to tailor your Imperial Age to what you're up against, and Japanese are really good at doing that, but it means that you kind of are forced to react in a certain way, whereas a civ like Mongols or Celts, the two civs above them in A tier, like, they just have very strong game plans that they can go for, and like, yeah, you can adjust it a little bit to the map and civ matchup, but, those civs have very, very good sort of inherent game plans. Japanese, it's like, well, I mean, you have Arbalests, but that's not like a lot. Most civs have some kind of Arbalest or something similar sort of push. So yeah, that's kind of the problem with the civ, but still though, really, really strong early game, and at least a diverse military in the mid game, and then in a sort of grindy situation, you have some of the best halbs in the game, as well as fully upgraded skirmishers, and at least light cav with bloodline. So top of B tier. Next up, we have Lithuanians, who definitely were nerfed along with all of the new civs. Yeah, this is the first of the new civs. Yeah. So all of the new civs have fallen quite a bit from DE launch because they were all overpowered at launch. Now they're definitely brought more in line. So Lithuanians, they still have the plus 150 food at the start. This does have a very fast drush implication that some of you may know. It's like 3 minutes or something. But even that aside, you can have a very fast scout rush. Mid-game, you have really good monks, you have cavalry, you have the ability to buff up your cavalry attack with relics, and you even have archers with Thumb Ring. The problem is in Imperial Age, you don't have Arbalest, you don't have Siege Ram. Your halberdiers are really fast, but you miss one pierce armor compared to normal halberdiers, and you also have to get a really expensive unique tower shield, which is a little bit awkward. And you don't really have a mid-game bonus for your economy. So it's a little bit awkward, but other than that, Lithuanians do have a very broad tech tree and, a lot of, good choices. And I think just especially in like early Imperial Age, it can be a bit awkward without Arbalest or Siege Ram, and it's kind of hard to end games with them. Like, they can take really good fights, but you can't really end games as comfortably. Next, we have the Magyars. Definitely a very popular civ. A lot of people really like Magyars, I feel. And I do too. You have a very strong scout rush with the free forging and cheaper scouts. Then you don't have an eco bonus. Well, I mean, you don't have any eco bonus at all, but the cheaper scouts kind of works sort of like an eco bonus. But that obviously stops impacting at some point. Yeah, you have free iron casting then, which can be very good. Your cav archers are completely generic, but fully upgraded until post-imp, where you also have a lot of other expensive techs to get for your cav archers, so it's really hard to like get cav archers going with the civ. But even so, like, your knights can be really, really strong with the free blacksmith upgrades. And then once you do get to late game, Magyar cav archers are really insane. The Magyar hussar is one of the best trash units in the game, if not the best trash unit, and are really, really good at sniping siege weapons, which in a 1v1 situation, late game, your siege weapons are very precious. And the fact that you can snipe them super easily, and then you have normal cheap hussars to boot, you have Arbalests. It's definitely a civ with a lot of really good late game options, really good early game options, and kind of a weaker in the middle. I guess you can think of them as somewhat similar to Mongols in that respect, but probably a bit stronger of a mid game, and probably a weaker late game in terms of what you can realistically get in a 1v1. But there's still definitely a very solid civ. And you can do a lot of, cool, aggressive, scouts or knights and stuff like that. Next, we have Spanish, another civ whose position is, like, kinda meta-dependent. Like I've been saying, it's a little bit more focused on ranged units, it's a little bit more focused on drushing and walling and not fighting in Feudal Age as much as normal. Maps that are more consistent in their generation, which means they're easier to wall normally. And Spanish love that. They love going to Fast Castle Conquistadors. It's their favorite thing to do. Or you go Tower Rush into Fast Castle Conquistadors if your map's bad. And yeah, Conquistadors are really good, guys. In case you don't know, they're a really good unit. You heard it here first from Ornlu. No one else has ever said that. This is a true hot take. No, but they realistically have very few counters in the mid game. They're just one of the best Castle Age units. Skirmishers do deal a little bit of extra damage to them now in DE, but it's still a really good option in some civs, like say Franks, just do not have good answers to Conquistadors. So that can definitely cement your position in the mid game, give you a chance to get your economy up and rolling, and then in the late game you have all the way up to Paladins if you can possibly get to that, as well as fully upgraded trash units, villagers with supremacy, bombard towers possibly, and just a ton of options in Spanish. They're definitely a known quantity. You kind of know what's coming with them, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's possible to stop. And like I said, the meta definitely currently favors that a little bit more. Hey guys, it is Ornlu from the future. So, after editing the video, I realized that it was an hour of me rambling even after I cut it. So, yeah, I'm going to split this video into two parts. The first one will be, 30 minutes. The second one will be 30 minutes. So, stay tuned for the next one. It will be tomorrow. Thank you guys for watching. Definitely, leave a like or whatever is the thing you do. Yeah, like that's the YouTube thing. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy. Definitely let me know your thoughts in the comments. And yeah, see you next time.